Good evening, Prime Minister, and welcome to this Year in Review, where we'll look at what has happened in the past year under your leadership and look forward to what we expect to happen in the coming year. I'm joined this evening by Julian Morris, the editor of Channel 5 News, and Curtis Matthew, the editor of DBS News. I am Dion Zura. I'm from the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development. Thank you for sitting with us this evening.
Well, good evening to you, the panel of, I'm not sure question or interviewers, whatever it is, I'm happy to be here. Opportunity again to interact with yourselves as citizens of this country, where, as you said, we look at the year just concluded and looking ahead of Dominica's future. I'm happy to be here. I look forward to a constructive engagement. And for us, this is not anything new in the government. We continue to make ourselves available to the public, whether it's on a radio program or through occasions like this to be questioned. And we look forward to, as I said, to a very constructive engagement. And let me greet my colleagues, some of my colleagues who are here with me in this setting, and also the listening and viewing public. You know, we've started the year with great demand on ensuring that we can implement a lot of government programs and policies in 2019, because we see 2019 as a very exciting year for our country. Very exciting year. Last year was a very challenging one, but we can all say that the year ended very well for Dominica. We saw how every one of us passed the Christmas, celebrated the Christmas and New Year's. There was a lot of money circulating in the economy. Businesses would have had record sales for the Christmas. And this is an extraordinary situation following devastation caused by a hurricane, where our country was really flattened by Maria. So we really had the first real Christmas after Maria, so one could assess where we have come and where we are now. We ended the year with certainly very few tarpaulins, and in many communities where you see tarpaulins, it is either a situation where these are people who are overseas, or these are people who are still waiting for some insurance money, maybe their second home that they're renting, abandoned homes. So we made tremendous progress. We're not out of the woods yet, so to speak. But when one considers everything, I believe we've made tremendous progress so far. For the entire year of 2018, every single public officer received his salary on time, and in many instances before time. We have not defaulted on the payment of one loan. This is extraordinary, extraordinary. As a matter of fact, after the hurricane, when we were making our loan payments, our creditors were surprised, because 226% of the economy devastated, no revenue coming in, expenditure skyrocketed. You are still able to maintain prudence and a responsible approach to the governance of the country, and not reneging on your legal obligations. And I remember when I went to Washington to meet the World Bank and the IMF, and the hurricane happened in September. That was October. We paid them in October, and they themselves were surprised that they were able to get paid very early in October for that quarter. And so we have been able to keep the state of ship afloat and progressing towards shore. And in regards to our social programs, not one social program was slashed or removed. Not one was reduced. As a matter of fact, we have increased our commitments to the vulnerable. You saw in the end of December, we gave a bonus to the senior citizens on top of the $300 they were getting each month. In regards to our youth, we made a firm commitment to cut their student loan by 40%. 40%. This is a major investment in light of the devastation and the challenges which we have to deal with following Hurricane Maria, to make these massive investments. And those who are benefiting must understand that if you owe in $100,000 on your student loan, the government is paying for you $40,000. That's an investment. That's money the government is putting in your pocket, literally, because you don't have to pay this anymore. And therefore, you're able to save this $40,000, invest in a piece of land, use that land as collateral to build your own home, and therefore build a base in terms of assets that you can build on and pass on to your children. So want us to look at this. Not one student had to be thrown out of school because this government did not meet his obligation to the school. We met all our obligations to our students. As a matter of fact, we increased our commitment to students by providing the students with additional sums, some students with additional sums to cover rent and also to buy food, recognizing that their parents did not have access to the banks, recognizing that some of the parents would have lost their income immediately after the hurricane, and we want to ensure that the students do not come in. The farmers, literally weeks after the hurricane, farmers got money. And it is not compensation, it is an assistance, an investment the government made by providing farmers with $10,000 and $3,000. I am a subsistence farmer. I can tell you, for any farmer in Dominica, $10,000 can bring you tremendous investments on the farm. Tremendous investments on the farm. And I must say that the farmers spend this money wisely, the vast majority of them, and we have seen the results to the point where you can get anything you wish in any quantity at the Roseau market and the Porto market. And the export has increased in terms of what the pack houses buy, the hucksters. And sometimes there is a sort of a misunderstanding, because hucksters tell us they can't get enough supply sometimes, and farmers say they do not have sufficient markets to sell the produce. But I think what we need to help the farmers on is on farm management, marketing, pricing, because a lot of farmers don't understand that when there is a demand and the demand is high, supply is low, you get a better price. If demand is low and supply is high, then the price will change. And sometimes people don't understand that there has to be a price fluctuation when it comes to selling the commodity. So we have been able to meet our commitments to the public servants. We're able to meet our commitments to young people of Dominica. Small businesses continue to get assistance from the government, and we are building, and we have built several homes. As we speak now, we have currently on the ground in Dominica, where housing is concerned, invested, committed resources with homes being built, $305 million. $305 million that would exclude the homes in Bellevue-Chopin. Exclude the homes in Bellevue-Chopin. We're talking about Portsmouth and the East and La Plaine and the Castle Bruce and the Canada Territory, you name it, we're investing in housing.
Looking back, the most significant gains over the past year seem to have been in housing.
Yeah.
By way of continuing to review your successes of the year, this must have been gratifying for your government.
Well, we have helped people with housing not because we had monies and we do not know what to do with it. We recognize that if the government itself did not step forward to assist many families in our country fix their homes, repair their homes, put a roof back over their heads, build new homes to them, they would not have been able to do so. You understand? And many of us, in fact, maybe all of us who were insured, and we were insured for the life of our homes, always paid our premiums and so forth. Every one of us, the insurance told us that we were underinsured. So you have $150,000 worth of damage. You say, thank God I'm insured. The assessment came and the insurance tell you, no, you're underinsured, and therefore you could only get 40%, 40,000. When do you get the additional sum? You're a retired public servant. You're only relying on your pension. You are 75 years old. There's no bank that will give you money to fix your home at that age. What do you do? And I think it has to do in large measure with the compassion of the government, the caring nature of the government, and the government's unceasing love for the people whom it leads. And while we have not completed the task, any person who is honest in this country would agree that this government has made tremendous strides in reaching out to its citizens, its residents, in respect to housing. And when I move across Dominica and I see, and people come to me and tell me thank you for what the government has done, I am satisfied. And for us, always, every home we build, our view is this is one less vulnerable family in Dominica. And you cannot build 500 homes at one time, but every home you build is one less family who is vulnerable. And every roof we covered, we view it as one less family who are exposed to the elements, to the natural elements of rain, sun, and wind.
Prime Minister, I want to go back to September 2017, and I'm sure the others would like to weigh in on that topic. In your first public address following the hurricane, you made the very bold assertion that Dominica would become the first climate resilient country in the world. For many, this is still a very abstract concept. How exactly is your government planning to do that?
First of all, we have to recognize that we made that statement the first Saturday after the hurricane. The hurricane took place on Monday. We woke up Tuesday morning, and the government went to the United Nations on the Saturday with all of the government ministers, homes affected, including mine. And while we were seeking to bring relief to our people, we were also thinking about the future. And it tells you of the depth of the thinking of the government to have come up with this strategy so early after the hurricane. When we were all exposed, we had no tarpaulins then, because tarpaulins came late. We had to fetch food and water to drink and to bathe and food to eat. And we came with this. And we recognized, look, what scientists have said in respect to climate change is real, and we've always maintained this as a country, as a government. And we've argued this with the international community for several years at various international fora. And we felt that if those who are responsible for climate change are not going to take action to change their habits and behavior and commit themselves to implementing the actions which were agreed in the Paris Accord, then we have to do something for ourselves. And while we will not be able to stop the hurricanes coming and the frequency of them and the ferocity of them, that we feel that there were things that we can do to mitigate against the impact. And therefore we felt that we needed to come up with a strategy about building greater resilience. But if you go back to 2015, we started that process back then. After Hurricane Maria, we said we were going to build back better. And we said to the nation then that if we were to be visited by an event similar to Tropical Storm Erika, the infrastructure which we put in place would be able to withstand it. What are the pieces of infrastructure we put in place after Tropical Storm Erika? The West Bridge, which we were heavily criticized for. And on that bridge, not even the paint was removed by Hurricane Maria. Stood up. As a matter of fact, many critics of the government went there first to see whether the bridge was washed away, to say, hooray, the bridge washed away, we told you so. But thank God it was not. The houses we were building at Bellevue-Chopin at the time of Hurricane Maria, not one of the homes were affected. And as you know, we're putting the electrical lines underground, we put in the telephone lines underground, and we put in the cable TV lines underground. All of these things are underground at Bellevue-Chopin. That was all part of the building back better. And we joined forces with our Chinese partners and friends in building the York Bridge and designing the York Bridge with the build back better concept. So really, this whole process of building resilience, building back better, started in 2015 with Tropical Storm Erika. But what we have done with regards to resilience building is to develop a strategy that can generate the kind of support that's required from the international community to help us rebuild. Because to rebuild by ourselves, we will not be able to finance it. And we believe, and we are satisfied as a government and a country, that that strategy, that policy decision, that vision which we espouse first at the United Nations and later in different fora and explained to the citizens of Dominica, is what has generated the interest in Dominica and the willingness to support Dominica in a sustained manner. So one of the things we did after that pronouncement is to look at the world and to see which countries have been affected by major weather events and what these governments did in response. And when we went across the world, we look at Nepal, we look at Indonesia, we look at the United States, we look at some countries in Europe, we look at countries in the Caribbean after Ivan and so forth. And we, with support from the British government and others, we identify the Indonesian situation as having had the best structure to respond to natural disaster. So the Indonesian government created an agency similar to CREED to focus the government's response to this disaster. Indonesia is a place with thousands of islands, with several tens of millions of citizens. It's a major country. But that island was affected, and the government created this agency. We went as far as, and myself and our advisors, even meeting the executive director person who ran that entity to speak to him about their experiences, to see how they went about doing it, what are the challenges, what are the shortfalls, what are the issues that we have to be mindful of. And based on advice, we decided to create this agency similar to what Indonesia created after the tsunami in Indonesia. And we created CREED. And that has been we have been able to marshal the support of the international community to the point where Canada supported us with the drafting of legislation. The European Union is fully on board with us. The UK government, DFID, is an exceptional partner. As a matter of fact, DFID has agreed to finance the operations of CREED for 5 years with direct financial support. So anytime you bring a vision, a vision is something that you cannot see with your naked eyes. It is not a building. It is a vision, and sometimes people are unable to see what you see as a leader. But as time goes by, it's been crystallized. People will capture it and understand it. But I will say this to you, as I've said this in different settings, that the world is not helping us because we were hit by a hurricane. The world is helping us and has agreed to help us in a sustained manner because of this express vision to building the world's first climate resilient nation. And I will say to you that, like our citizens here, the international community stood back and said, well, what is a little island talking about? You guys are trying to hang your hat where your hand can reach it. But I think over time, when we're able to explain to them the various aspects of it and getting experts to assist us in putting flesh to the bones, people started to realize that this country is serious. And we have not only since then passed the legislation, we've passed the legislation, which is in less than a year, which is exceptional, but we also have a strategy. So when people telling you that we don't have no documents, this is a 143-page document. That is our National Resilience Development Strategy, Dominica 2030, looking at 2030. And we're now developing the plan with the CEO in office and the Chief Operating Officer in office. We've also put in advertisements out seeking to fill the other vacancies within for engineers, accountants, and the likes to have the full complement of the staff. So we believe that, and what has happened, Mrs. Smith, right? Mrs. Yes, Smith, sir. Yeah, Mrs. Smith. I was trying to remember the new last name, Mrs. Smith. What has happened as a result of Dominica's articulation of a vision, the Caribbean region now have adopted that vision. And our intention there is to create the first climate resilient region in the world.
You referenced Creed, and that bill was passed in Parliament in December. But I must bring to your attention, I mean, I don't have to do that. I'm sure you know that the opposition has some concerns. They say that Creed is a parallel cabinet and it's unnecessary. How do you respond to such concerns?
Friend, anybody in the world who believes that he or she does not need help from somebody, you need to question the person's physiological and mental situation. You can never do everything by yourself, no matter how bright you think you may be, no matter how experienced you think you may be. And this country needs all of the help it needs, all of the expert advice that's required to help build this country. And one has to understand too that with the hurricane, you have to continue running the state as you did prior to the hurricane. And to bring greater focus, and we know we have to accept, we know the challenges within the public service, we know the limitations of every public service everywhere in the world. No matter how large a country is, there'll always be capacity constraints. And I mean, for example, you take the Ministry of Public Works, the extent of work that the Ministry of Public Works has to do, to place the additional serious interventions on them, you're going to have a challenge. And therefore, what CREED is going to do is to look at certain critical interventions, you understand? Critical interventions, and that the government will assign those to it to implement. And we hoping with this structure, we can see greater efficiency, a greater speed with it. But CREED is an entity of the state. So it is no parallel government. It is still the Prime Minister who would give directions to the CREED, as the government. The Prime Minister is still the head of the government, as mandated by the Constitution. The Cabinet will give direction. The Cabinet will decide which projects, which programs CREED will intervene. But why would a country as big, as large as Indonesia, why would countries, developed countries, and Indonesia might be, I believe, the 15th largest economy in the world with a population of over 100 plus million people, would still think that it requires a special agency to assist in these interventions. So we are not going to apologize or say that we don't need the help. My friend, anybody listen to me, and any government listen to me, I can tell you whatever help you want to offer Dominica, this Prime Minister is prepared to accept it once you come in with no strings attached.
Prime Minister, you mentioned a CEO for CREED. Yeah. Who is that person?
This CREED is Miss Badwell. Miss Badwell is of Dominican origin. She's from Point Michel, as in Badwell from Point Michel. Miss Badwell comes with a wide range of experience and qualifications. She worked with the World Bank and other international institutions. And she has the energy, she has the passion, she has the intrinsic motivation, being a citizen of Dominica, wanting to help. As a matter of fact, literally days after the hurricane, she sent me a message offering to help. I did not know her until I met her during the interview, after the interview process, offering to help Dominica in whatever way she could. As fate would have it, she eventually applied to this position months after and was successful among a long list of people.
Is she already in place? Is she?
Oh yes. She was in place from last year. And with the law in place now, it gives them the full authority now to carry out the mandate in accordance with the law.
I just wanted to ask a follow-up question. It has to do with the Citizenship by Investment program. You mentioned the success stories in housing and the overall economy for 2018. A large part of that would have to do with the Citizenship by Investment program. But Prime Minister, some have criticized the program. Has that criticism led to a reduction in revenue for 2018 of the program?
You see, I thought your question was some led by the leader of the opposition. Would have been a better way to put it. The fact is, we've always said to Dominicans, our citizens and residents and the world, that we run a transparent CBI program, and that can stand the test of scrutiny by anybody, anytime, anywhere. Because we understand, while we appreciate the financial and economic benefits of the CBI, we're also mindful that one error can create a problem, not only for us, but for other countries in the region. And therefore, we're very, very critical, very, very, very careful with this. And we will never do anything knowingly to jeopardize the economic and financial well-being of our country. But I believe that, notwithstanding the criticism from the opposition and others, we continue to persevere. Our marketing maintain and promotion maintain itself. The stakeholders in the industry knew what we were offering, and therefore had no reason to agree to what was being paraded on CBS program. And those who are potential applicants do their own research, and they recognized that this was just mischief making, an effort to undermine the economic well-being of our country, to gain cheap political points. And I can say to our citizens that this CBI program saved us at the time of Hurricane Maria, because we were able to save some money, to have some money in the bank at the time of Hurricane Maria. And as you know, because of the hurricanes in Puerto Rico, in St. Thomas, the British Virgin Islands, in St. Martin, and elsewhere, all of our partners were engaged there. The British were in the BVI, the French were in St. Martin, the Dutch were in Dutch St. Martin. So all our partners who normally rush to our rescue in quick time, outside of Venezuela and Cuba and our CARICOM partners, because these countries have major assets like the British and the French and so on. A lot of the food that first landed in Dominica, we bought it ourselves. All of the roads we cleared, and to date, we have spent in excess of $131 million just in dredging of rivers. Dredging of rivers. One can appreciate what we could do with $131 million if we didn't have to dredge the rivers. We spent about $100 million just clearing debris on the streets and roads in Dominica. Okay? And the $305 million that we have currently invested in housing will all come from the CBI program. So the program has been successful, thank God for that. And thank God for the partners that we have and for their commitment to Dominica. You know, our marketing firms, CS Global, all the agents, the developers, the CBI unit led by Mr. Nanton and his staff there. I mean, everybody has been able to pull together and ensure that the program was on stream. As a matter of fact, you know, literally 2 days after the hurricane, we were able to process files and get the program going.
What about revenue?
Revenue is going so well. Between January 2018 and December 2018, I believe we would have picked up about, just in the, let me see, I think they gave me a note there, just for the that's just for the fun part of it. So that's to say, not for the projects. We would have picked up in excess of $375 million.
But Prime Minister, I want to stick with this a little bit, especially in reference to your comments that the CBI is funding several programs locally, and we do see that. But one of the main criticisms of the program is that it is not sustainable. What are the other economic avenues that your government is looking at to boost the country's growth?
Nothing is there forever. Like the CBI, even your income tax is not sustainable, because if jobs drop and people don't pay taxes, you have an issue. So, and you project you'll be raising X amount in VAT revenue, and suddenly you fall short. You project you'll raise X amount in import duties, and you fall short. So everything you do in life has its own limitations and has its own shelf life, so to speak. What we have been doing with the CBI funds is to invest in the infrastructure to facilitate commerce, to facilitate investments. We're using the CBI funds to build hotels, many of which are under construction and many of which will open the doors in 2019. That will create the sustainable jobs you need and the sustainable income that you will get. We also have put monies into the Aid Bank for Agriculture to invest in agriculture. Okay, to invest in agriculture. We put in monies to invest in the manufacturing industry, $15 million. The monies we invested, the $2 million US which we invested in DCP came from the CBI funds. All of the bridges and roads that we invest in coming from the CBI funds. We have placed a significant sum aside for the construction of international airport. The funds for our marketing, a lot of it will increase in the marketing budget. These funds come from the CBI funds. We are paying for the education of our children, our children in Dominica, utilizing the CBI funds. Investing in human capital, investing in our young people so that they can use those skills and knowledge to build a sustainable economy. So yes, we understand the realities of life. Nothing is there forever. So what we're doing is to use these monies wisely. And we've also used these sums of monies to pay our external debt. So if we reduce our debt, we'll have more money now from our fiscal position to invest in our country. And of course, we're investing in our social safety nets to provide for the vulnerable, to provide for our senior citizens.
So when all is said and done, we in a very large part depend on the CBI. In a lot of ways, what my concern was, and I wanted to ask you, what you thought in terms of the impact of organizations like the OECD, for example, and what happens from time to time. Because even when we last saw or heard of the fact that they had put Dominica on some list, side by side with that, there was information that Dominica had the best, excuse me, the best due diligence, excuse me, program. And this was happening simultaneously. So what do you think about the impact of these types of organizations on the sustainability of the program? What
the OECD and such international organizations are doing to Dominica and the Caribbean is unfair. The Caribbean, I therefore will speak for the Caribbean, Dominica included, we've always cooperated with the international community on all matters. When we advised a study done by the World Bank to diversify our economy in the 90s and introduce the offshore financial services, we went ahead of this. And all of the recommendations and impositions which were placed on the Caribbean, where money laundering is concerned, financial anti-terrorism, our Caribbean region have gone beyond what was demanded of us. And I'm saying to our Caribbean citizens and Dominican citizens that it is important for us as Caribbean countries and institutions to stand in defense of our sovereignty and our right to self-determination. We will go ahead before the OECD because they run the world. They will tell us what to do, and we'll have no choice to do it because we need the financial systems to operate, etc. But what they're doing is unfair because a lot of the things that they're asking us to do, they're not doing themselves. And I am not quite pleased with the fact that in the Caribbean, we have not had a united voice and a united defense on this. And I'm saddened by this. And because our citizens in the Caribbean are seeing this from a very narrow, partisan political lens. And this has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with a political party. This has to do about our countries and the right for our country to determine what kind of economic position we take, what kind of policies we implement to generate income for our countries, to create jobs. And if every opportunity we we create for ourselves, to create jobs for our young people who are coming back from university, to get them to get better paid jobs. Somebody outside of our countries, our region, you know, they're not even showing up in the region. They send you emails and tell you, you must do this. Like it is back in the days when Queen Victoria and Napoleon Bonaparte and all these people would issue edicts to us, and we would follow because we were colonies. And so that we are now reliving the 17th century in the Caribbean. And we have now to call emergency sittings of parliament in every country in the Caribbean, because there is a meeting of the OECD in the last week of December, and we're all trying to get off on this so-called blacklist. And I'm saying to us in the region that we have to unite. And this is not about partisan politics. Whoever is in government in these regions, you will have the same challenges. And I've said to the OECD in a letter to them, we have no difficulty in cooperating. But a lot of the things that they write are factually erroneous. You know, I mean, and we draw it to attention, and they still will not correct it in their dossiers. So we'll cooperate. I'm not saying we'll not cooperate. What I'm saying is that we in the region must not look at this from a narrow partisan political lens. We must see this about the future of our countries and the opportunities which we are seeking to create for our children and for young people who are investing in their education. That, you know, if we don't watch it, we'll have a serious challenge.
As you mentioned, the Caribbean Prime Minister, I want to take a look at Ross University.
Yeah.
Having left Dominica in August 2018, you've mentioned that a replacement for Ross University would be forthcoming by late November, December. What is the latest on
I did not give a date by which we will conclude.
But you said soon.
No. But we indicated that we engage in about 4 or so entities that have shown interest. We only got full possession and occupation of the campus on the 31st of December, 2018. And that had, without we having full control of the campus, created a challenge to us in bringing people to visit the campus, because Ross was not cooperating. It also tricks to prevent us from bringing what they may see as a competition to them in the region. So now that we have the full possession of Ross University, the campus owned by the people of Dominica, it places us in a stronger position to continue engaging those partners who can now come with no hindrances or encumbrances to visit the campus and to inspect for themselves whether that campus is suitable for them to operate as a school. But we're very confident that we shall find a replacement to us, and even maybe a better partner. Some people here have tried to make this a political partisan issue, which is normal practice, and that's fine with me. But I don't play political games with the welfare and well-being of people. And there are many citizens who invested to provide services to us and who have a challenge in meeting their mortgages to the banks, and it's something that we're engaging them on. So it's a matter we treat very seriously, and we will continue to engage these potential partners and make a determination which one we would like to enter into agreement with.
Is there any possibility of a legal battle between you, Dominica, and Ross?
We're not ruling this out.
You're not why?
We're not ruling, because we believe that my view to the government is that we should pursue Ross where compensation is concerned. We had a lease agreement with Ross, and Ross broke the lease unilaterally. And there are several of our citizens who would have invested based on that lease with Ross, specifically to Ross. And I believe that we may very well pursue Ross where compensation is concerned.
Ross has moved on to Barbados Prime Minister, and looking back, the departure of Ross must have been a major economic blow. In retrospect, do you feel that there's more that your government could have done to keep them here?
There's nothing the government, Ross took a decision by itself. There's nothing the government, that Ross asked the government to do that the government did not do. As a matter of fact, the firm decision of the government was to focus on the campus of Ross. So we got lights back at Ross first before anywhere else. We got water back at Ross first before anywhere else. We got internet connected at Ross before anywhere else. We engage Ross by indicating to us what else do we need to do. Ross raised one issue, we addressed it. You see what I'm saying? It is simply, in this business world, an economic decision taken by Ross. It has nothing to do with Ross in the government. As a matter of fact, I will say to you, if Ross would come to me and say, look, Prime Minister, look, we have to invest $40 million to US to fix the campus based on the damage caused by Hurricane Maria. Can you do half? We would have put in $20 million US into the campus. But I will also say to the Dominican citizens that some of the buildings that got affected by Ross, by Hurricane Maria, were buildings that were part of the partnership agreement to be replaced with all of the concessions granted to us. So these were not buildings that were built recently that got damaged. These were buildings that had to be replaced anyway based on the agreement we had in them, the 25-year partnership agreement which we had with them. So there's nothing the government could have done that Ross asked us to do. So, for example, Clay Harbor. We met to Clay Harbor. I spoke to the gentleman by telephone very early after the hurricane, and they were very transparent with us. They said, look, Prime Minister, we need these 4 or 5 things. And I went down there myself and mobilized the resources of the state, fixed the sheds. I front-loaded the resources to the aid bank because the aid bank waited for insurance money. We gave the aid bank $4 million to fix the sheds. We even went as far as giving Clay Harbor a government-owned generator to continue his business because there were fluctuations from Dominica at the time. You see what I'm saying? And I myself mobilized government vehicle to bring the generator down to Clay Harbor. You see, so with a partner like that, you knew what the partner wanted and what you need to do to get it going. With respect to the property owners, all of the property owners fixed their apartments and so forth. And Ross sent in inspectors, they checked with the apartment owners, and we would have been able to provide housing for all of the students and all of the faculty as early, I believe, as September of that year. But this is a decision they took, and they moved out, and we have to move on. But I will say to the people, there's nothing that Ross asked us to do that we don't do. And I'm saying that if they had come to me and say, we need to invest $40 million, can you put half? I would have gladly put $20 million US and to invest on the campus to sustain the presence of Ross.
Let me ask a follow-up, if you don't mind, moderator. Prime Minister, soon after the withdrawal of Ross University, you asked Dominicans not to attack the Prime Minister mortally at the time. You still believe that she had absolutely no part to play in taking Ross from Dominica, so to speak?
I'm not in the business of attacking people. That's not my style. You know, and I don't think attacking the Prime Minister of Barbados is justified in any way. You know, and I still maintain that position. I mean, let us look at the relationship between Dominica and Barbados. Dominica and Barbados have enjoyed some excellent relations way back when Tom Adams was in office. As a matter of fact, many of you do not know that when Eugene Charles couldn't pay salaries and so forth, Tom Adams would help with some bridge financing. And even after, when we came into office as this government in 2000, and we made the treasury empty, we couldn't pay our debts, we were defaulting, we couldn't pay salaries. Barbados was one of the first countries which offered us a loan, you understand, a concessionary loan. You know, and even after Tropical Storm Erika, the entire Barbadian community, and after Hurricane Maria. So I don't want us to go and create enmity with a great friend over a decision taken by somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Prime Minister, I just want to stick with this just a little bit longer. You indicated earlier that you were discussing with the people in Portsmouth. That's what I inferred from what you said. Can you tell us a little bit more about the cushions that you?
We will certainly in instances where some of the landlords will need support for bridge financing to ensure that they can hold on to their properties, that the government is minded to providing them with some financing to meet the obligations for a period of time. But that has to go through a transparent process of application, and there'll be information that be required and so forth. So I believe that we will certainly help the property owners there. You know, and so we will certainly help some of the property owners in that regard. Yeah.
You're also the Minister for Investments. Can you talk to us about the investment opportunities you've been able to attract over the past year?
Well, we continue, as you know, I mean, you've seen a number of businesses emerging in Dominica. I mean, when you look at Do It, for example, Do It, I mean, and the major investments there. We have a new galvanized plant in Dominica. First time manufacturing our own galvanized in Dominica outside of the one in Portsmouth. Okay, plant that you can go in and get your precise measurements and so forth. We have Fort Young redeveloping and reconstructing, not only fixing the existing properties, but expanding. We have also the Secret Bay, which we will sign with in the next few days. There's some new discussion in regards to the budget and so forth. Secret Bay is going to expand in a dramatic way. With the Hilton started, for example, pouring foundations, buildings going up, 20 people employed there, 73 rooms to be constructed. So the investment climate in Dominica after the hurricane is showing signs of serious comfort to us in 2019. And I think if the insurance companies were able to pay people much quicker than they did, because there's still significant sums of money outstanding to the private sector, and that has also stymied the ability of the private sector to invest heavily. But you also heard of from Social Security itself, some 389 employers registered with them, and employers meaning businesses, people who are employing people, and that is since the hurricane. So it tells you that there are opportunities, and there are many people who are taking advantage of the opportunities to invest in Dominica, shifting the investment portfolio, trying out new things because they have new opportunities there. So 389 new businesses, and let us say, for argument's sake, if each of these businesses were to employ 5 people on average, one can understand the impact on employment in the country.
You mentioned earlier manufacturing and DCP, and we do know that your government assisted that company. Are there plans to assist other entities who may be struggling in the manufacturing sector?
Well, we have the funds at the aid bank, which is still available, some of which is still available at 2%, with a 12-month grace period. I mean, there is nowhere in the region you'll get that kind of financing. No bank in Dominica will offer this to you. No bank in the region will offer this to you. 2% interest, 12-month grace period. That is close to a grant, really, in the scheme of things. So that money is available. But we are more than willing to engage manufacturers who are prepared to use local raw material in the manufacturing, and who want to seriously engage the government on how the government can assist it in financing, and to see how we can, one, get you expanded or get you started off the ground. So we're always open to this. As a matter of fact, we help a number of these entities, but it's not something that we speak about openly. And I believe that's something we need to make that known to the public, so they can understand to the extent to which we invest in direct financing to a number of private sector entities, whether it's in tourism or agriculture or manufacturing.
You did take some serious steps to post Hurricane Maria make available special facilities at the aid bank for private sector.
Yeah.
And initially we had responses to the effect that people found it really difficult to access the funding. And what I recall, we were going back to the drawing board, so to speak, with it and so on. Where are we in terms of their ability to know better access those funds?
People are accessing it. I mean, we have to also appreciate that running a business is not running an NGO, and running a bank, you also have to follow certain banking principles and guidelines, and there are certain requirements when one is contracting a loan, and I dare say a majority of the requirements which have been included in the agreement came from the stakeholders themselves. I mean, I would venture out to say about 90% of the conditions came from the stakeholders themselves. After the hurricane, we went to a further review, we made certain changes, but there are some things in the agreement which we are unable to agree to, and one of which is the issue of collateral, because if the Treasury puts in money at the aid bank and it is not secured, it can place the bank itself in difficulties in terms of its rating, etc. But also we have to be mindful that if the bank does not have the ability to repay the government, then the Treasury has to cover up this debt. So you can create some challenges for the fiscal situation of the country. And the other issue that some of the stakeholders are asking us to do is to provide them with monies to allow them to use some of these funds to pay off existing debts. And the position of the government is that that is a dangerous practice. We would provide you with financing to augment your business, to buy raw material, to buy new machinery, to have working capital, but it is ill-advised to give you monies to pay bad debt, because when you go and pay the bad debts, it is not really having an impact on the economy, because you're unable to use that money because you give it to another institution to really invest in your business. So these are two areas I believe that of things that we cannot compromise on.
You do have, and one of the things we've seen has been really significant post-Maria is the sort of the tremendous investment in infrastructure. I mean, you name it, it's happening. What are you looking at down the road in terms of 2019? I know this is a part of this program. We'll get to that later on, looking ahead. But as we will, just talking about infrastructure, what are we looking at going forward into the new year?
Yeah, I am happy you talk about going forward, because if you talk about back, we spent a long time there, because we've invested tens of millions of dollars in building bridges and reconstructing roads. I mean, the folks in the east, I'm not sure when last you went to the east, but the folks in the east are driving on oil in Mont John River Syric. I mean, it is into La Plaine. They waited for some time, but they've gotten a real good Christmas gift there. And you will see that happening in many parts of the country. And of course, going forward, we have a number of critical projects. Of course, we have the West Coast Road with the Chinese, where they're now building simultaneously 3 bridges for us in Point Trong, in Batalé, and Makusri. And so these 3 bridges are being built concurrently. We have the road that's financed by the British government from Loubert all the way to Bakatel. We're making some progress, not as fast as we'd like to, because the monies have been deposited to be managed by the World Bank. So these things sometimes take longer than we would like for it to take. We have the Roseau Enhancement Project, which is, we believe, a flagship project for the country, where we're seeking to build a resilient city with having the cables and all the lines underground, and new drainage system, new sidewalks, new roadworks, etc. And of course, that's a pre-Hurricane Maria project. We've done certain aspects in regards to the bridge and the retaining wall, so we'll continue with this in this year. I am saying to the country that as long as we're still on earth and the good Lord has not come to get us to heaven, where we will not need an airport in heaven, because we'll have everything in heaven. That is, those of us who are going to go there. We will build this airport, international airport for Dominica. And we are committed to this. We have commitments from some friends. We have some of our own monies. We have enough money to pay for the lands, which valued between $50 to $60 million.
Where are those lands located?
As in from Eden back to Woodford Hill area. We've written to a number of the landowners. I want to thank the property owners in this area who have all agreed so far to sell the lands. In some instances, we'll have exchanges, because some people have asked to exchange the lands for other lands that we have, and I am certainly taken by the willingness of the landowners to facilitate this process, recognizing the importance of it to the country. We're now conducting more detailed soil testing and doing geotechnical studies. So we have the firm from the United States who is conducting those more in-depth geotechnical and soil testing, so that we can know precisely what soil type we have there, and what type of engineering we have to employ in the design of this area. We have done all the feasibility studies, all the wind tests and so forth. We have had the alignment approved, so we know the alignment of the runway. We have an initial estimate for the cost of the runway. We have conceptual drawings from the firm, and with this agreement with the firm, they'll move towards more detailed drawings, more detailed studies, and I'm hoping that by that time we would have concluded the sale of the lands. I have said to my friends in Woodfield and Wesley that if you agree to sell the land to us at an agreed price today, within 48 hours, we shall provide you for check. And that's a commitment again, because we have the money set aside for this. So we've committed to this. You will also see the construction of a new cargo port, a modern cargo port down at Canefield on Donkey Beach there. We will build a port there. The feasibility studies are concluded. We'll also, having built the new port down at Canefield, we'll build a cruise village. And we're working with our cruise partners, international cruise partners from FCCA and others, on this, who will provide guidance to us as to some of the things that they would like to have included in this. So what we're trying to create with this new cruise village that would replace the Woodbridge Bay is to have a duty-free zone there, a complete duty-free zone. Because one of the things I believe we need to capture is the million-plus citizens who are resident in Guadeloupe and Martinique, who would prefer come to Dominica to shop because the euro would have some strength and be able to buy duty-free stuff and go back to Martinique and Guadeloupe. We see it happening there, but if we have a more structured approach to that, we can benefit much more than that. And then we'll move the ferry terminal to that cruise village. So even when the cruise season is off, we will still have tens of thousands of people coming through that port, and the vendors will now have a year-round operation rather than just a seasonal operation, and therefore increase their income and increase their opportunities. And we are working on a strategy with one of the cruise lines, and some of it will require legislation, and we'll articulate this in the weeks and months ahead. And in the medium term, with the construction of the cruise village, we will see our cruise numbers increase to 600,000, and in the long term to take it to 1 million. So that's our aim. In the short term, 600,000. In the longer term, to 1 million. And we're satisfied that we can achieve this. We've been scoffed and laughed at by people with no vision in the opposition, but that's matter for them. We're certainly committed to this, and based on the advice that we're getting from our partners, we can achieve these things.
We're at the end of 1 hour, and at this point we'll take a brief break to give you a chance to stretch your legs, Prime Minister, and we'll be back soon.
That thing is killing me. That light is directly in my eye.
Welcome back to the Year in Review with the Honorable Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Scarrett. Welcome back to our listeners and our viewers. Prime Minister, in April of 2018, you reshuffled your cabinet. Among the major changes was a new ministry for the MP for Roseau, the former UWP member Joseph Isaac. You gave him major responsibility to see through your climate resilience agenda. What is your assessment so far of the value he has brought to your administration?
I think, I mean, we've always said, you know, in sitting from the government side and looking at the opposition, that really the only person who appeared to have been serious about the country and making a contribution to national development was Joseph Isaac. And as a matter of fact, days after the hurricane, he did come to my office to offer his services and offer himself wherever he believes that I as Prime Minister could make that contribution. I mean, he was the only member of the opposition who reached out to me as Prime Minister to offer themselves or the services to the people of Dominica. And I thought that that was exceptional. I can say to you that he has been making and will continue to make a very positive contribution to the government's deliberations, to the country's discussions. I mean, we've seen, for example, with the implementation of the ban on styrofoam, certain items and certain items made of plastic that has been implemented. You know, we've developed the National Resilience Development Strategy on this. We are making strides with regards to the forest and the reforestation program. You know, so there are a number of very important programs that we have been able to achieve with his contribution since he came in. And you know, and this is just another testimony of my own words being practiced. I've always maintained that I am prepared to embrace and to work with anybody who is prepared to put country before self and party, and somebody who is serious about nation building. And I have done so on numerous occasions. Because I don't believe in, truth be told, I don't believe in the internecine political strife, which we've come to know since Mr. Linton became the leader of the party. You know, the country is too small for that, and this is why we believe that we needed all hands on deck to make a positive contribution to our country. But there are some who are not prepared to do so, and those who are prepared to do so will embrace them.
Can I go ahead, moderator?
Yes, sir.
As you mentioned, Prime Minister Lennox Linton, the opposition leader, my question to you now is, will you be prepared to sit on a panel to discuss national issues with the opposition leader?
Well, you know, I reached out to the opposition in 2015 in an internationally unprecedented manner. There is no country in the region and no government in the world that has reached out to the opposition in the manner which which I did, and I have continued to do. Where we invited all elected members of parliament to almost form a national government, because I guard the Ministry of Finance and my responsibility as Minister of Finance very jealously, and I always maintained there should only be one Minister of Finance in the country at any one time. But after Tropical Storm Erika, I ended up having 21 Ministers of Finance, which meant that every elected member of parliament was given a blank check to spend to respond to the disaster. And I did so with a genuine desire to bridge the political divide and to show the citizens that we can work together. We can disagree on certain things, but there's some things that we can agree on and work together. And I've done so in numerous national consultations. I broke protocol, for example, when we were discussing the creed, and the leader of the opposition spoke after me, and I gave him the same amount of time as the Prime Minister did. Nobody speaks after the Prime Minister in a forum, especially an event that is held by by the Prime Minister. But I gave him equal time to speak on this. We had the cannabis consultation. He was invited He did not speak, but he was invited. Um, Recently, at the National Independence Address, I indicated the desire of the government to address a wrong in society where and how we treat with past leaders. I wrote to the leader of opposition asking him to suggest a name. He wrote in his usual form with all sorts of things that are not necessary, and never offered to represent to anybody on the opposition side to be part of the committee. So the government is going to do it alone. Every opportunity I've given Mr. Linton to be part of a national discourse, he has reduced it to internecine politics, strife and negativism, and never been really serious about engaging. So I am open to engaging anybody on national issues. But I don't think Mr. Linton understands his role as leader of the opposition, and his functions, and the great responsibility and the seriousness of the responsibility which that office holds. And this is why it is dangerous to elevate someone like that to office of Prime Minister.
I'm going to use this to segue into health. One of Mr. Linton's major concerns, it's a sticking point for him, is the Marigot Hospital. We've heard over the past 2 years or so several possible dates for the start of work at the Marigot Hospital. Give us an update on what's going on there.
Well, first of all, I don't think Mr. Linton is interested in the hospital being constructed. If you're a member of Parliament representing people and you're genuinely interested in doing so, you write to government and you write to all international organizations and all type of foolishness, long letters, 5-page letters, of all sorts of innuendos. If you're genuinely interested, would you not write the Minister of Health a letter, invite him to a meeting so you can discuss the Marigot Hospital and offer your assistance where you can? The government has never said it is not going to build the Marigot Hospital. As a matter of fact, the government has already secured financing for the construction of the Marigot Hospital to be financed by the government of the Republic of Mexico. That is monies that have already been transferred to UNOPS, the agency that will be responsible for implementing the project on behalf of the government of Mexico and the government of Dominica. We have signed numerous, in this agreement, in this financing, you're required to sign numerous documents. So far, we have signed no less than 8 or 9 documents in relation to that project. And there was once I was out of state, and the Deputy Prime Minister, who was then acting Prime Minister, signed on my behalf. And we had to go through a whole process of getting an apostille and so forth, because it wasn't the substantive holder of the post of Prime Minister, Minister of Finance who signed the document. So numerous documents have been signed. The last document was an MOU which I signed some weeks ago. So these processes, the procurement process can be very prolonged, very long. And I've expressed my frustration about these things numerous times. The government went ahead and cleared the site, which was a requirement of the project. We paid close to $300,000 to demolish the site and to clear it, and so that it is an unencumbered site ready for construction. So when I hear the people talk, it's not people talking as if the government has decided not to finance the hospital. We have agreed to finance the hospital. And in this hospital, it will be a smart hospital. It will be a hospital where you will have diagnostic equipment. It will serve as a trauma center in the event you have an accident at the airport. And especially with our plan to build an international airport, we recognize the importance of this. So the importance of it to the Marigot Health District and so forth. Notwithstanding the fact that we have not started the new hospital, as far as we know, the political directorates know, there are no challenges with the dispensation and provision of healthcare services at the hospital, in the Marigot Health District. The patients continue to be seen by doctors, they continue to be seen by nurses, they continue to receive free pharmaceutical medication and so forth. So it is not a situation where we have closed down the Marigot Hospital and we have said we're no longer going to finance it. You know what I'm saying? We have financing for it. it is not the government who is going to implement the project. Based on the agreement that the Mexican government has, insofar as its development aid is concerned, it has placed the monies, as it has done in other countries, into UNOPS. Okay, that's the agency that will design the hospital, that will procure the contract for the hospital, and that will build the hospital on behalf of the government of Dominica and the government of Mexico.
So as of now, we do not have a start date that you.
We have written to UNOPS, asking them for a revised schedule for the implementation of that project. Once we get that revised schedule, we will share this with the general public so that people can be informed. And that's what it is. And if you go to the Parliament and the questions I've been asked in Parliament, you will see the response laid out in the Parliament by the Minister for Health. So we're just trying to create unnecessary rancor. Where really there ought to be none, and there's no justification for it. But we're committed to the hospital, and the hospital will be built because we have the financing for it, and we're basically waiting on UNOPS to start the process.
Are you concerned, Prime Minister, that as we speak, you don't have a major health facility in close proximity to the airport at Marigot, the Douglas Chelsea Airport?
But what has existed? We have a hospital in there. The hospital is not necessarily the building, is the facilities you have to, the equipment and the medical practitioners. You understand? There are countries where you have your hospital operating in a tent, but they provide excellent services to those who seek the services. We agree that, and this is why this is the first government, people always like to talk about these things, as if these things were there already and people we demolished and so forth. This is the first government that has articulated a clear plan with refinancing to build a modern, state-of-the-art hospital in Marigot. And we're committed to doing so. We're committed to doing so, and we will do so because we have the financing and the commitment for the financing in the government of Mexico. So yes, we would have liked to, just like everybody in Marigot. Nobody more in this country is more anxious than I am to get things done and to see things get done. You understand? And this is why sometimes I rather use our own resources to get things done. But the fact is, we cannot afford to finance all that we need to finance in our country. And we have to rely on friends and partners who are willing to assist us. And sometimes these things take a long time to get done.
Can you bring us up to date, though, on the construction work at our main hospital at Goodwill?
Well, work is moving very, very fast. The Chinese contracting firm have really increased the pace, and I want to thank the Chinese ambassador and the Chinese government for this. We have been advised by the Chinese that we will get the first phase handed over to us by April of this year. So the first phase will be handled by April of this year, which is good news to us. It can be before that, but certainly by that time, it will be ready. And as you know, we had to take some time to do some changes to the design following Hurricane Maria. So the rest of the buildings outside of this first phase, the roof will be concreted. There are some functional changes we had to make with the floor space, the use of the floor space, and the Chinese government has agreed to that. So work is going apace. So the first phase of the hospital will be for this new hospital, and the second phase, as you know, we'll have a helipad constructed with funding from the Chinese government. We'll have an increased water storage capacity at the hospital to ensure that the hospital can run itself for several weeks in the event of a natural disaster. So we're and of course there'll be additional services that would negate the need for us to have our patients go into other countries to seek medical care.
Can we respond to those, Prime Minister? Do you share public concerns about the quality of service on offer at the hospital?
Well, it's not the Minister of Health or myself or the cabinet that dispenses the services. Our responsibility as the government, as a political directorate, is to ensure that the resources are available. And we do make the resources available. For example, last year, I believe, or the year before that, in the budget, I believe in 2017, we increased the pharmaceutical budget by $5 million to ensure that our citizens and residents who are suffering from cancer-related illnesses have access to the medicine that they require to live comfortable lives and to mitigate against the pain and suffering that cancer imposes on the body. And we ensure that we have increased the capacity of dialysis center. We have the CT scan, we have the x-rays, so we have the adequate doctors and nurses to provide services. It is really the nurses and doctors who provide the service. And I've always said and I've said so publicly, that it is really the doctors and nurses who should respond to the public to say whether it is true that people are not receiving the service that they're receiving from the practitioners are not to the level it should be. In every environment, you will have those who are diligent and those who will go the extra mile, those who have good bedside manners, and those who will treat people the way that they would like to be treated had they been the one receiving the service. And you'll always have people who will fall short of the services. But I don't necessarily agree with those who give the impression that the entire hospital, insofar as the delivery of medical services, is found wanting. I believe that we have to be very grateful to many of the doctors and nurses and ward aides and domestic workers who go the extra mile to care for our citizens and for family members. And I think it's unfair that even some medical practitioners, some of whom are now retired and so on recently, are part of that criticism. But the question is, but you worked there for 30 years. Are people talking about you? And I mean, so people are making this thing political. And I caution people about making people's health a political issue. And I would say to people, for me personally, my philosophy on life is that I treat people in that receiving end. And that's how people should live their lives, because you never know where you will stand or sit tomorrow.
But as we're speaking of health, though, the issue of health insurance and the importance of that particular issue here and what we've seen happening in the country, where are we in terms of the development of the pilot project and so on, and the impact it's made?
Well, first of all, I would encourage families who can afford to seek private health care for their family, especially if you have children, because healthcare globally is very expensive, and it's important that you have medical coverage for your family. The government recognizing that there will always be some among us who will not have the means of procuring that health insurance privately, have been talking about and exploring the idea of setting up a national health insurance scheme. And that's been a talk around for many years in Dominica. We took a decision in the cabinet that, look, let us stop the talk. Let us try something. Let us start something. And therefore we started with the first pilot for children of particular age group. And last year, a year before that, in 2017, we extended it to another category. And we made tremendous strides. I was just given some documents there on the impact we've had on this, and the number of people who have benefited from this. To date, let's say, number of beneficiaries under the National Health Insurance Scheme, from April 2017 to December 2018, 78 people benefited from this facility. 78 at a total cost there of $2,938,461.98. So 38 individuals have benefited between April 2017 to December 2018. So this is for this short period, 78 people and $2.9 million spent. So the fact is, we're looking at this and we're learning from his experience. So every year or two we will extend it and eventually get to the whole. So instead of waiting to create this national health insurance scheme all at once, let us start. And as we go along, we'll learn from the experiences and see how we can make changes to improve on it and to eventually get to a national health insurance program.
I'd like to move on, Mr. Scarrett, to the great marijuana debate. In November of 2018, your government held a consultation, a major step, and we've seen several of our Caribbean neighbors taking very decisive action to decriminalize the drug. Can we expect similarly decisive action from your government in the coming year?
Well, we've taken the first decisive action to have a national consultation in the first time, led by a government. The Rastafarian movement has had consultations in the past, but first in the government of Dominica has led that consultation. We believe that we need to explore and pursue the medicinal benefits of marijuana. The government and the Labour Party have always held that it's unfair to citizens to have on their records for their lifetime, if they were to be arrested for a small quantity of marijuana for personal use. So we're prepared to look at this aspect of decriminalization where this is concerned. We have no difficulty in allowing the Rastafarian community who use the cannabis, the herb, as part of their religious rituals. So we're looking at that. Where I always have the caution is that in the process of doing all of these things, that we do not expose the young minds of our society to the possibility of abuse of this, because everything has a benefit. Sugar is good, too much of it causes a problem. Salt is good, too much of it causes a problem. So yes, the cannabis may be good, but too much of it may have a challenge. You understand? And we have to be mindful of the impact on the young minds and in not affecting our young people. So I am, where this is concerned, I have some concerns. Some may say, well, the empirical data and evidence shows otherwise. I hear you on that, yes. But as the leader of the country, I do not want to be in a situation where my conscience can haunt me. So far, no decision I've taken has caused me not to sleep at night. And therefore, I am very careful about how we approach this in respect to ensuring that our young minds do not have access to this unduly. Because just like alcohol, and it is illegal to sell alcohol for a child below 18, but we see school children have access to alcohol and abuse it. So once you legalize this stuff and it can be grown anywhere in Dominica, like grass around on the roadside, if you don't do it properly, our school children are going to have access to it. Because in some schools they have access to it now, and it's illegal, far more if it's readily available. You see, so we have to be mindful of this. But I also say that I have heard the opposition parading this as an economic savior for the country. Yeah. They've been ill-advised. And while one, yes, we may be able to get some benefit from it, but I don't see marijuana, in all due respect to anybody who's talking about this thing, as an economic savior for the country. And if that's what the opposition is placing the economic and financial prosperity of our country on, then they're very high.
Yes,
the follow-up I was going to ask is, you mentioned the fact that the Parliament, can we see the government go to Parliament with this marijuana issue in 2019?
Certainly. Certainly. We'll go to Parliament. We are looking at legislation that has been passed in other jurisdictions, because it makes no sense you go and invent the wheel when it has already been invented. So we're looking at what other countries have done and to see how we can learn from these experiences. In some countries, marijuana has been used as medicinal purposes for a very long time, for several decades. For example, in Israel, they've had tremendous successes in this. Even the university I went to, they were pharmacology department getting federal aid, you know, for almost the entire existence of the university. So people, their studies have been done on this, and we'll go to Parliament to pass certain pieces of legislation to facilitate the Rastafarian and community to have access to this for their religious purposes, and to address the records of many of our young people who would have been arrested by the police and charged by the courts for a couple of marijuana cigarettes, and who want to move on with life and who have made a change in their lives and so on, but can't go forward because of that stain, unfortunate stain on their records. And I think we need to clear this.
Of course, Mr. Skerritt, there are several areas of the economy that we want to touch on before
Sure.
the last hour winds down. Agriculture, marijuana could be
Yeah.
classified as agriculture, but we've heard from the Ministry of Agriculture following the passage of Hurricane Maria that one of the areas of focus was food security and building resilience within the agriculture sector. Where would you say your government is with this?
I mean, we made tremendous strides. You know, where agriculture is concerned, our terrain, you know, while the soil is fertile and we get adequate rain, it's also difficult terrain. But I believe that the proactive approach that the government took immediately after the hurricane helped in having food security in our country. I mean, the provision of seeds and seedlings, planting material, inputs, and the direct cash that farmers needed really motivated farmers to plant and to plant. We also provided farmers with the white potato seeds, and this year, the last year, 2018, we saw a record amount of sweet potatoes in the market. I mean, and the quality was much improved. You know, a number of farmers got involved in this. The government provided the seedlings. The government itself even bought a wide variety of it to sell to the private sector. So farmers did a major profit on this. With the help of the Chinese also, we have been able to provide seedlings of various kinds to the farmers. At the aid bank, we have the 2% loan with a 6 months grace period, and many farmers have accessed this. We provided fishermen with outboard motors and boats, new boats and outboard motors, so they can start the trade immediately. So just over a year after the hurricane, we have been able to supply ourselves with all of the food we need, all of the fish we need, all of the chicken we need, all of the pork that we need, and most of the eggs that we need. You see, I mean, this is phenomenal. And mark you, birds or the layers, you need about 25 weeks before they could start laying. But you know, we had to help farmers front load their investments to get these chicks and to get the feed and to get to the point where we can supply ourselves with eggs, because most of our birds would have died in the hurricane. To get the abattoir back into operation within weeks of the hurricane, where we can slaughter pigs and slaughter chicken and so on and supply the market, is exceptional. Fishermen, I mean, we have a lot of fish in Dominica of various kinds, high quality fish. And all of these things could not have been done without a government strategy, a government plan, and importantly, government financial backing. And so that's why the first order of business in my discussion with the World Bank in Washington in September was to provide these grants to farmers, where we invested in excess of $22 million of government funding in the agricultural sector. So to have $22 million of cash invested in farming is a huge amount for a small country like ours. And we saw the results of it to the point where before the end of 2017, our farmers were exporting some of the short-term crops. So we're exporting cucumbers and different tomatoes and so forth to our original brothers and sisters. And the market, when you go to the market, I mean, it's a beautiful scene.
What moves our foot though to increase agricultural export? Our farmers still cry that they need markets and they need boats to transport their produce.
Well, we're working with a couple of local people to acquire some boats. So they're acquiring some boats. We're getting them some loans from the aid bank. So we'll see We will see the presence of a couple of boats that were lost during the hurricane, replaced and so forth, which is critical. I believe that's where we have to work more coordinated approach to secure the markets, but also we have to get the farming community to be more business oriented. And this is why in the new strategy we're going to reorient the agricultural investment unit to provide that kind of guidance. And within the Ministry of Trade, along with DEX, have a dedicated unit that deals with the marketing and the trading of agricultural produce. So we're going to be reorienting our marketing strategy to help the hucksters, because really the hucksters are doing a fantastic job in sourcing the markets, but we're going to need to provide them with some more professional guidance and so forth. The challenge we always have is that we fetch the markets, but we are not in a situation to consistently supply the volume that's required. You see, and I think that's where we have to address it. Dexter has tried to do so with the dashing and having the markets and having the farmers supply. But truth be told, sometimes, we have these programs, we give the farmers the support, but a huckster passes by before and is given a good price. The farmer sells it, you see, and that now affects the market which Dexter would have, or even the other huckster who you're planning for would have, because he's unable now to supply his market the volume that he would have liked to supply. So I think between the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of Agriculture, we're going to have greater improved synergies, where the Ministry of Agriculture will have better information on the volumes that we have to provide it with trade that can now send this out and so forth. What's going to happen in the new year is that we will have delegations from Invest Dominica, from trade, members from agriculture, Dexter, the pack house, go into these markets along with the hucksters, along with the traders, to do joint marketing and joint marketing research and so forth. So that we bring to bear the support of government, central government, in a more coordinated manner with the hucksters, so that we can engage the marketplace in a more coordinated approach. So this year you're going to see this, where we'll go to all the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Martin, the French West Indies, Barbados, Trinidad, to engage those markets and to see how we can supply them. Antigua, how we can supply them and so forth, in a more consistent basis.
I'm sorry. One of the components I would imagine, I would understand, to increasing production, you would have to have, an increased number of farmers. And I've heard the Minister of Agriculture make reference to the idea of getting more women and youth involved in agriculture. How, in your view, how is that progressing? How is that working out?
Before I come to this, Maurice, as you know, we have a $67 million project with the World Bank. We have the unit ready to implement this. $67 million that will go to various components of what we consider to be the new thrust in agriculture, and that will take into consideration infrastructure like the agricultural stations, propagation, management, and a number of interventions in agriculture. So that's $67 million that we have from the loan from the World Bank that will be invested in agriculture. And part of the component will also look at the issue of women in agriculture and youth in agriculture. I always hear people talk about there are not enough young people in agriculture, and I always beg to disagree, because there are a lot of young people in agriculture in Dominica, and what is happening too is that we are seeing now young professionals, university graduates who are investing in agriculture. And I think what we need to do in the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Minister and I have had this discussion, and he has agreed with me, and he's pursuing this, is for us to reach out to these people, to help them in terms of the investment capital on the farm, and to build them up. I met a youngster in Calibishi, and he's a young guy who we're going to invest in, and I'm hoping we can meet with him soon in the government system. So he does the cassava bread and so forth. He has his bakery, he does the cassava bread. He plants the cassava, and he also has contracts with a number of farmers to supply with the cassava. And I think we need to take this product beyond the shores of Calibishi. And what does this young fellow need to get to the next level? You understand? We have invested with Big G's in dailies. After the hurricane, I met with him, and he says, "Look, I have a proposal." I said, "What proposal do you have? Give it to me." $40,000 required, and we invested that $40,000 in Big G's. So he was able to resuscitate his farm, because he also plants peppers. He buys from farmers, but he also plants. Get him to buy equipment for his processing. And Big G's is back to the primordial level, even bigger. And we're looking for other such entrepreneurs. There's a young gentleman, Karim Geese, who's a young professional who works at Digital. He's a major poultry farmer. You know, maybe now one of the largest in the country, since the McIntyre farm was destroyed some years ago. So he might be the largest egg producers in the country. And we have to talk to these people. I mean, he got a loan from the aid bank for the government investments. So the government needs to reach out to these people and to see what are they doing, how are they doing it, and what kind of support they need to get to the next level where they can increase capacity. So these are some of the things practical things that we're doing in the government system, in Ministry of Agriculture, to increase production and so forth.
I hope there's support for subsistence farmers too, because I do some subsistence farming.
Well, we encourage that. That's great. You know, we encourage that. We encourage that, and there is an opportunity for support within the agricultural strategy for subsistence farmers. Because what we're seeking to do is to not to create any classes of farmers, but let us look at the commercial farmers in a separate category, and let's look at subsistence farmers like yourself and maybe myself and so on. I'm not sure if Julian Morris plants anything. I certainly know Curtis Murphy plants nothing, but you know, and to see how we can support it, because this thing is good for food security.
Of course.
You understand? Even myself, I am promoting what I call integrated agriculture. You know, so I have a couple hives on my farm, mainly for pollination purposes. And I have a wide range of mix of crops of small acreage and different varieties of stuff. You know, my storm drains and so forth. And what I have done, I'm moving away from pesticides and weedicides completely, you know, because I have to protect the bees. And I'm going to do a small chicken coop with 30 layers to get for the pen manual to use for the vegetables and so forth. And what I'm hoping to do is to turn this into an opportunity where school children can come and learn some things. But interestingly, I'm just doing this thing for pollination, but my friend went there and harvested the honey and came up with 12 huge bottles of honey.
Nice.
You see what I'm saying? And I understand this thing fetched for over 150 euros.
Wow.
So if I had to send this to Guadeloupe to sell, I'll have big money.
So there is opportunity in the industry, but Mr. Scarrett, it would be remiss of me if I did not touch on education. I would not be able to live it down at work tomorrow. Over the past year, we've made significant strides in education. In fact, just this week, we opened 5 new schools for the first time since Hurricane Maria. But what I want to focus on is the issues affecting our teachers. Our teachers have concerns, specifically relating to their appointments, to their salaries. What assurances can you give them going forward that these issues will be addressed?
I could say that to the teachers, and I'm sure all of them will agree to me, that they do not have a better friend in politics than Roosevelt Scarrett. And if you look back from when I became Minister for Education to now, and where the teachers were and where they are now, teachers in Dominica have made phenomenal strides under this administration. And you recall, and you see sometimes, you recall in 2009, where by an action of the government, we created 150 new positions in teaching. People have to understand how the public service operates. A number of these teachers are employed as temporary teachers. So they come in as temporary teachers. They may have a degree, they may have the teacher's qualification and so on. But if there's not a vacancy in the teaching service, you'll never get appointed. And there's a process by which you go to create additional positions. That's why you have a situation where somebody might be teaching for 10 years but not get appointed because there's no vacancy to appoint this person for various reasons. Maybe somebody might be studying, or you have more teachers than positions. So what we did by a stroke of one pen, we created 150 positions of teaching. and appointed 150 teachers in those positions. And so what we're looking at, and this is why I maintain, for me and for the government, from the cabinet standpoint, and from the Dominica Labour Party standpoint, my view is that once somebody is in a position for 5 years, 3 years, and so on, that person should be appointed. If the person is not performing, take the person out. But if the person is there continuously for 5 years or so, the person is performing, then you should appoint the person. But it is not in my authority to process people's appointment. There is an issue of appraisals, and sometimes these appraisals are not done by the supervisors, and for many years. And before the permanent secretary can send his recommendations to the Public Service Commission, you must have all those appraisals done up to date. So I think that the administrators of the public service, the supervisors, the unions, need to work together on issues of addressing the deficiency of appraisals within the public service. But in respect to, we intend to create additional positions. So we've asked the Ministry of Education to look at how many teachers we have who are not appointed, and to advise us on how many positions we need to create to appoint those teachers. So we're committed to this. The issue of salary, it's a matter for bargaining arrangements, negotiations. But the fact is, no matter how much money, in my view, you give a teacher, you'll never adequately compensate that teacher. And I was a teacher myself. I am still a teacher myself. And I understand the tremendous, especially if you are genuinely concerned about the welfare and well-being of a student, you'll go the extra mile. There are about 2% of teachers, I believe, that should not be in teaching anymore, but the vast majority of them are doing an exceptional job. So I think and there was an appraisal done. I had advised the union and I advised the government system back then when they were doing the reclassification. I wrote and I said to them numerous times that we needed to separate, to deal with reclassification of teachers separately and not put them with the public service generally, because teachers, nurses, they deliver a particular service, and we cannot hit them with an engineer or somebody. Not that they're more important or less important than the engineer, but because of the fact that they're dealing with human beings and molding and providing services to human beings, that we need to treat them separately. And I predicted the results of the reclassification. I told them before the classification started that if you proceed with teachers in the gamut of things, they will come out worse off, and that happened. So we could not have implemented the whole thing, though there's some of them who would have come out better than others. But the vast majority of teachers would have had their salaries reduced, would have had their position reduced by the reclassification. So I've always maintained that we need to revisit that reclassification process and to treat teachers separately. We had attempted that, all fairness to the Ministry of Education, but there were some issues, I believe, that we never really concluded on that aspect of it. So I think we need to, without any motivations and ancillary issues, that we need to focus on the welfare teachers and see what we can do to improve the conditions of work and the conditions of pay for teachers.
All right, Mr. Skerritt, we're winding down our elections are constitutionally due in May of 2020 and expected this year. You hold all the cards. Can we expect a call to the polls this year?
Well, I will tell you that the people of Dominica hold all the cards, not me. This election, whenever it is called, by the appropriate authority in accordance with the Constitution, will be the most important election since our country attained political independence in 1978. And in this election, the people of Dominica will decide on one party that can assure and has a plan to assure progressive growth and prosperity on one hand, and on the other hand, uncertainty and confusion that is occasioned by inexperience and incompetence on the part of the United Workers' Party. So that's a choice the people of Dominica have to make. and to determine which group of men and women are more serious about the welfare and well-being of our country, and who are better able to advance the economic fortune of Dominica. What I will say is this. In the final analysis, it is left to the people to decide. I always tell people I have only one vote, and I vote in one polling station in Vegas. The people will decide who they wish to govern the affairs of the country whenever elections are called for the next 5 years. And it's a choice between a group of experienced people and the opportunity to advance progressive growth and prosperity on one hand, that is provided by the Dominica Labour Party, on the other hand, uncertainty and confusion occasioned by incompetence by the leadership of the Workers' Party. And I'll tell you, when people talk about leadership, leadership in everything is important. Whether it's in the church, whether it's at your home, whether you're in a group, whether in an organization, whether in a country. To allow a senator to miss 3 sittings of Parliament to the point where the Speaker would write to the President, informing the President that a senator has missed 3 sittings and therefore he has vacated his seat in the Parliament, is telling on a leader. I can tell the country that this would never happen to me as Prime Minister with an elected member of Parliament, far more for a senator. And it speaks to the weakness of the leadership, of not taking decisive action and correcting this. And it is also a disrespect to the Constitution of our country that you would have a senator whose business it is to perform his duties in the Parliament to be working outside of Dominica, not available to the Parliament, not even during the budget debate, which is the most important item on the calendar of our Parliament, our country. That's when the women wear their best dresses. That's when women wear their hats. That's when you have the musical band playing the fancy song. That's when the president, the head of state, addresses the Parliament. If we had white horses, that's when the president would have come to Parliament on a white horse, as the governor did. You see what I'm saying? And to miss those events, it speaks to the weakness of the leadership of the Workers' Party. And so Dr. Thompson Fountain, as we speak, is no longer a senator in Dominica because he missed 3 consecutive sittings without the express authority to speak.
Prime Minister, I realize that time is running out. I have 2 more questions for you. Moderator,
that's fine.
Can I go ahead and
yes.
take 2 more questions?
Please do.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, in recent times, we've had allegations surface over your Justice Minister, Mr. Blackmore. These are allegations, of course, very serious allegations. How are you, as the Prime Minister, treating these allegations? And my other question, the final one, has to do with electoral reform. It's been suggested by the opposition that Prime Minister Skerrit is delaying electoral reform measures in Dominica. How do you respond to these allegations?
Well, I've been in active politics for 19 years. And I've learned in this position about the need not to rush to judgment and the need to search for the truth. I have heard of the allegations like everybody else, and as the Prime Minister, I had the opportunity to quiz the Minister of National Security on this matter, and he has vehemently denied all of the scathing allegations made in this article. But I will say this further, that as far as I know, there has been no report to the police by a friend of the alleged victim, by a family member of the alleged victim, or the alleged victim herself. And these serious charges would obviously, one would make a report to the police. None has been made so far. You'll also note that the authors of the article and the medium through which these people create this article are known to be propagators of lies and untruths about the government. But I would want to think that if you have, and of course, some of the details that they have, the details that they have included in this article, and I have seen and heard that one of the Catholic priests have objected to a number of the photographs, claiming that this is his home. This is where he has coffee, and those pictures have since been taken down. So if you have those facts and you're unable to substantiate those facts, so I can only deal with what I have before me, and what I have before me is that I do not have any information that would cause me to take action against the Minister of National Security in respect to these allegations. But I will say, we have in this country turned politics into a blood sport, and believe that, and we're treating each other as if we're just stones. In the Merchants of Venice, Shylock, the merchant, when he was being persecuted, and said, if you cut me, do I not bleed? And I have never known politics to be that way in Dominica. People behave as if you don't have family, you're not human. And people feel that they can gain political benefits by going after people in their families in this really nasty way. You understand?
I'm sorry.
But time will tell. In respect to electoral reform, there are 3 branches of government as provided for in the Constitution. There's the executive, there's the legislature, and there's the judiciary. Each having its own duties and responsibilities as provided for by the Constitution and relevant laws. I keep telling people, a country is run by laws and not by men and women. I, as Prime Minister, cannot take any decision which the Constitution and the relevant laws do not allow me to. The executive has certain functions in respect to the process of electoral reform. One, this cabinet, this Labour Party, has provided the commission with all of the monies it has asked of the cabinet to provide it with. And in difficult times and hard times, when people need homes, and schools need to be built, and Margaret Hospital need to be built, and farmers need access to their farms, right? And people need monies to go to do surgeries elsewhere, seek medical care. In difficult times, the cabinet made monies available to the Electoral Commission to effect the process of electoral reform in Dominica. And in the first request of the cabinet, the commission asked of the government, the Minister of Finance, it's written bigger here, so let me get it. 3.9 $3,942,803.80. We made that first amount available to the Commission. And that amount was to purchase of the system to issue the national ID cards and to input the biodata of each elector in Dominica, and to purchase 330 mobile checkpoint units. That is a unit that will take your photograph and take all your biodata and input it in the system. So $3,942,803.80 which the cabinet approved. So as we speak, for over a year now, the Commission has had the equipment, the hardware and the software required to issue the national ID cards and to go around the country in the various villages to get the information of voters and get the photographs and so forth. A second request was made of the cabinet to provide for additional sums for training and travel, and also employment of additional staff, purchase of a passenger bus, cost associated with implementation exercise including public relations, $1,959,647.43. Dr. Dario, here you go in maths, you go get out $3,942,803.80 plus $1,959,647.43. So 5.8 million, close to $6 million in difficult times. The Minister of Finance advised the Cabinet to make available to the Electoral Commission to effect the process of electoral reform. The other thing we did as a Cabinet, as the Executive, was to prepare amendments to the legislation, because the Parliament needs to give to the Electoral Commission the legal authority to issue the national ID cards and to go through the process that it has to engage with electoral reform. As you all know in the country, we went to the Parliament. There was a riotous situation. And in the judgment and the wisdom of the government in the Parliament, we decided to withdraw the bill and to go through a process of consultation. We had a consultation, we wrote to various stakeholders, asking them to submit certain recommendations. There was nothing substantive coming from them. That notwithstanding, in listening to radio programs and listening to comments about the draft bills, we removed certain sections of the amendments. And we went back to the legislature. The executive went back to the legislature, seeking the legislative change and approval to the laws. Because that's all you need now. The only thing the country needs now is the legal authority to allow the Commission to make those changes, to effect electoral reform and to start the process. The opposition, with its movement, or whatever they call it, the opposition party used that entity to file an injunction in the courts, preventing the government from seeking parliamentary approval to the amendment. So that's where we are. So the only entity that has shown interest in proceeding with electoral reform is the Dominica Labour Party administration. Mr. Linton and the Workers' Party are not interested because they want that to be a football, so to speak. And that's the only thing that's giving them any news coverage. Because there's nothing they have produced, they have no strategy, they have no plan, they have no programs that could effect prosperity and continued growth in Dominica. And so what they provide is confusion. confusion. So when I hear people preaching and so on and talking about these are the facts. These are the facts of the matter. So there's an injunction against the state, the government, from go seeking parliamentary approval. So if you are opposed to certain amendments, my brother, then provide your counter views. So which of the sections in the amendments you're opposed to, and what is your alternative to it? That's how people engage themselves, and that's what we're waiting for.
As we come to an end, Mr. Scarrett, the opposition is also concerned, or rather we've heard word that your government may be considering establishing registering agencies in other territories to register Dominicans living abroad.
But
is that happening?
But that is not unusual. That is not unusual. It happened in St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis got support from the Commonwealth Secretariat to effect certain changes some years ago to its electoral laws. And as a progressive nation, I mean, clearly, you have citizens who are resident in major capitals, New York, New Jersey, London, etc., who may not have the opportunity to come down to register themselves. It doesn't mean that the person is not supposed to be on the voters list. And it is the commission that will oversee this. It is not the cabinet, it is the commission that will oversee this, because the commission has certain constitutional independence. Is a creature of the Constitution. As a matter of fact, I do not communicate directly with the commission. The commission communicates to me through the president, and I do the same. And we have never interfered with the functions of the electoral commission, and we have no interest in doing so. This government has always respected the institutions of the state and given the institutions of the state their independence. So there's nothing, you go on your own research in St. Kitts, and what did St. Kitts do some years ago, about 10 or 12 years ago, when it engaged itself in the process of electoral reform, financed and supported by the Commonwealth Secretariat. So this is just, you see, on one hand, they say they don't want people living overseas to vote. But on the other hand, they're telling them, come to vote. You see, the opposition really is not interested in this thing. That's the only thing that the media will capture them on the news, and you will have them. Otherwise, there's nothing. And so, really and truly, they went to the court and put an injunction on the process. That's what it is. So, as far as the government is concerned, the records will show, the facts will show, and we have done everything.
We'll take one final follow-up from Curtis Matthew.
Sure.
Prime Minister, with this injunction filed in the court, could we have a situation where elections are called and there are no measures for electoral reform instituted by the government?
No, it's not the government.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm saying is...
The government.
Yeah, what I'm
saying is, the government has done everything it has had to do. That's to say, the executive.
Right, but could we have the elections based on the injunction in court? Could we have the elections without electoral reform?
The injunction in court has no impact on the calling of elections.
No, what I'm saying is, could we have the elections called without electoral reform? Based on the injunction in court?
Yes. Yes.
This has all the
and I will say this party which I have the honor to lead will never disenfranchise people by virtue of the fact they're living overseas. I believe it is a retrogressive step. And anybody who is proposing that we remove people who live overseas from voting, except if they die or etc. or so on, as provided for by the laws, is really not in the 21st century. And countries now are moving to embrace the diaspora. I mean, Israel, the United States, in their entire existence, people who live in the diaspora vote. There are many Dominicans here who have voted in U.S. elections, and they have not been to the United States for the last 30 years. You know, there are many countries do so. So, Mr. Linton needs to articulate properly what his arguments are. And so far, I really have not heard anything but just confusion. and using this in an unsuspecting manner to get his narrow base to create confusion.
I was saying this qualifies for a separate interview all by itself.
I'm available anytime.
Yes, this issue of electoral reform. But we do thank you, Mr. Skerritt, for sharing with us the past 2 hours, and we look forward to similar forums with you and your cabinet members.
So we open to this anytime. We're not opposed to being questioned and quizzed on any issue relating to our stewardship of the country. I look forward really in 2019 for all of us working together. There's still a lot of work to be done. I believe the future of Dominica is bright. We have a plan, we have a strategy, we have the resources to back it, and we're the only party that has friends and partners.
I mean, friends abroad, friends in Dominica?
Everywhere in the world. Here, overseas, abroad, whatever way you want to call it, this Labour Party has friends in institutions, in governments, in countries. And the only friend, the only known friend the opposition has is the Polisario.
I want to steal a second from
Polisario.
I want to steal a second from
who is associated with terrorism and the financing of terrorism. That's the only friend. And I will say to you that the Polisario is not recognized by any international organization as being a country or legitimate government. So, really and truly, there is no country or government that Mr. Linton can say that if he's prime minister, something happens, he can call on them. And can you imagine, Curtis? I'm sure you've imagined that Mr. Linton was Prime Minister Dominica at the time of Hurricane Maria. That he would have members of the parliament who have no lights, and that he would call Antigua and ask for one generator just for himself.
Prime Minister, going to steal a second from Dion Dura, the moderator, to ask you.
I can stay 1.5 hours if you want to.
Do you want to stay?
No, I can stay 1.5 hours if you want. Or the next 20 minutes.
Prime Minister, your slate for the next elections. I know Dion has mentioned the calling of election. Your slate will include, I suspect, new faces as long as experience.
But the problem I have as party leader is that I have so many people to choose from. In every constituency, that it's becoming very difficult for me to decide who I choose. But people have made themselves available, and quality people.
So the slate will include some new faces, many new faces.
Yeah, there'll be
over 10, 11, 12.
When you see, I have to get the ratification of the executive of the party, and they have not authorized me to speak on this matter. But once I'm authorized to speak on this matter.
Have you confirmed Roseau Central?
Yes, the Roseau
Have you confirmed the candidate for Roseau Central? Can you answer this one?
All I will tell you is that if the Prime Minister will call election tomorrow morning, that he will be ready. The DLP will be ready. And I will say, based on what the people of Dominica are saying, including many supporters of the Workers' Party, that they really cannot fault this government on its efforts. And that we're the only serious group of men and women. And I think that is part of which has attracted many people. I mean, Thompson has abandoned ship. You see what I'm saying? And at the appropriate time, the party will announce its slate of 21 candidates to the country. But just to say that I'm having a headache as party leader. I've had a headache of deciding who among the many. Because if I could have 160 people as candidates, I would have had that. That's as many people we would be available to choose from. Mm-hmm. But very, very, as always. And look at this, outside of the 1990 UWP team, and especially in the last 3 elections, there's nobody who has declared himself a candidate for UWP has made a sacrifice. None of them leaving something to come to something. The only person who has left something, and he didn't really leave it because he has his own business, was Isaac. He had a job. But majority, if not all of the United Workers' Party candidates including those I'm hearing who are going to run this time, are looking for work. And in leadership, you must not be looking for work. You must be prepared to make sacrifices for the people. Look at the Bible and in the selection of disciples. Men could not even go and tell their wives they were leaving. Men had to abandon their little business, their little fishing. Peter had to leave his boat and follow Jesus. Because leadership at any level calls for sacrifices. Because it's not easy, you know. And you name our candidates, I can tell you what job they left. Nurse Charles, big nurse. Dr. McIntyre was the chief vet. Dr. Darrow was one of the most progressive doctors in the country. You see what I'm saying? Blackmore would have been chief of police today. You see what I'm saying? You name it, my brother. I was at the state college. My salary and that of minister was about a couple of $100 different. So every one of us, and including those who will be eventually selected, because every one of them leaving something to come into this, all of them will be leaving a secure job and placing their pension and gratuity in jeopardy. They'll be losing it, many of them. All in an effort to make a contribution to Dominica. Rosalind Paul left her job, compromised her gratuity and pension. You see what I'm saying? Kelver gave his youth to this. I mean, you see what I'm saying? You go in Castle Bruce, the lady in Castle Bruce there, this teacher of Ernie or Vernie, what her name is, you'll ask her 3 times, she said no, she unemployed, she want to run. I mean, that's the caliber of people you guys want to run this country, brother. You imagine if this guys were running, can you imagine Sparks was a minister during the Hurricane Maria? And Mr. Linton was Prime Minister? We would be in trouble. And let us not take it for granted, you know. It is a serious thing. I might be saying it with a little jest, as I usually do, but it's a serious thing. Serious.
All right.
So, we can have a further discussion if you want.
Yeah, but Dion, I just wanted to ask a final question on this. The Prime Minister 3 years ago said he admired Dr. Keith Mitchell in Grenada, who had gotten a clean sweep. And the Prime Minister went on to say that he admired that so much, he probably was looking at that. Prime Minister, is that still on?
This is very still on. It is very still on. The fact is, the only reason why Mr. Linton may win Marigot, because the majority, if you go to Marigot now, the majority of Marigot people are just fed up with this guy. They think he's lazy, they think he doesn't care, he's not doing anything. Let me look at Christmas party they might go have for people, for school, for children. A little toy, a little food package for a senior citizen. Where all the money the party is raising? When I raise money for the party, my brother, choice for every child in Dominica, snacks for every child in Dominica, food packages for senior citizens. That's how we use the money, party money, to help people. Anytime I give you cash from my pocket, is from the party resources. That's how we help people.
Are you calling it this year?
Well, we have, the date is December, and I think we're to Parliament in January, and you have 90 days after that. So the time is still young.
It is due, after all, in May, finally,
May.
of 2020.
You see, she's telling me May 20. I didn't realize that, so we have a lot of time.
You do
I have
have
more time than I thought. It was April, which telling me.
You do have that window, Mr. Scary, but I want to bring it back
Sure,
because
no
this is a year in review. We looked at what you accomplished in the past year, and we looked forward. So, as your final word, what can we expect immediately over the next month, over the next 3 months?
In the next several months, we'll be housing a lot of people. I mean, you see the progress we made in Castle Bruce, the house in there. One building has been completed, just to put the windows and to paint and tile and so forth. Not playing the same thing. We're making good progress in Georgetown and Portsmouth. We're building several homes across the country. So, really, this year is a year of prosperity and growth for Dominica, and the unleashing and unveiling of the resilience strategy to manifest itself in a practical sense. So this is a very crucial year for us in our country. And I believe if each of us were to make our contribution in an honest manner and be more diligent than we have been, we can go places of the country. Great prospects. We have the financing. We have the commitment of our partners. We have the competence in the government to implement these things. We're clear in what we want to do. With the strategy, we're developing the plan to implement the strategy. So we just have to work together. We will see this year, in the first time in the history of our country, a 5-star hotel opening with an international brand. People mustn't forget those things. We have several branded hotels. The Kempinski will open this year. We have Jungle Bay who will open its doors for the first phase of 60 rooms. Really a piece of art down there. And many of the projects will commence. The major projects will commence. All of these projects will help transform the economic landscape and increase the opportunities for our citizens. And my hope and prayer is that our citizens will place themselves in a position to take advantage of all of these opportunities. If we have to retool ourselves, and we have to do so. And so, really, 2019 is the beginning of our 50th anniversary, setting the foundation for and executing the plan for celebration of our 50th anniversary as an independent nation. And so it really is onward to 50. And if we're successful, God willing, and with God's help, to implement some of the programs and projects we have in agriculture, in the economy, the investments see themselves. We can start the airport, we can build the seaport, we can build the cruise village, we can have the road enhancement project far going. We will build a significant number of the 5,000 homes that we have managed ourselves to build. I think we can really transform the landscape of Dominica in a positive way.
Thank you so much, Mr. Skerritt. Let's discuss more regular press interactions going forward.
You tell me when, I'll make myself available.
All right. And we thank our listeners, those of you tuned in via DBS Radio, Vibes Radio, and Kyra FM, as well as via the internet and our various television stations. My name is Dion Dira Smith, and I was joined by Curtis Matthew of DBS and Julian Morris of Channel 5 News. Thank you so much, Mr. Skerritt.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.